Hello and welcome to another episode of Seen It, with today's part focusing on the 1995 Michael Mann directed thriller Heat. These days, Heat is known as one of the greatest crime thrillers ever put to screen, but back in 1995 it was sold as being the first time Al Pacino and Robert De Niro would be appearing on screen together, and given the star power of those two back in 95, that was all you really needed to sell a movie. Now I know it may seem strange to a younger generation to hear the names Pacino and De Niro spoken with such reverence, but you have to remember, at this point in time they were seen as acting gods, and had not yet become known for their roles in comedies or for chewing the scenery like Jim Carrey on an acid trip.
I will bring you down, baby. I will bring you down to Chinatown.
They pulled me back in with hazelnut too, caramel swirl. I know it was you.
Oh boys, you used to have such reserve. And back in 95, their names alone could sell a movie and guarantee a huge opening. So to have both of them in a film where they'd be appearing on screen together was the dream crossover, even before I knew what crossovers were. Now they had of course appeared in the same film, The Immortal Godfather Part 2, but as that film takes place in two different time periods, they never appear on screen together. But thanks to some of the most intense and memorable performances ever put to screen, both actors were able to build up a pedigree and a reputation few actors can match. I can remember loving their work when I was younger, and along with Jack Nicholson, I often wondered what it would be like if those three actors were ever in a film together. Yes, while many people my age were fantasizing about a Schwarzenegger and Stallone team-up, I was thinking about Pacino, De Niro and Nicholson. Is it any wonder why I hated school so much? Heat was released at a time when both actors were still seen as huge box office draws, and the kings of their respective field. So bringing these two heavyweights together needed to be handled with finesse and style, and Michael Mann, to me, the master of style and direction, was the ideal person to be charged with directing Heat. The scene itself is, of course, the coffee shop scene where Pacino and De Niro's characters sit down and talk. At a glance, it couldn't be a simpler scene. Pacino's character shadows De Niro's character, and once their cars come to a stop, Pacino asks De Niro to get a coffee with him. The two have a 6-minute conversation, and the scene ends with a smile. Simple, yes, but there is so much more to this sequence than just two legendary actors sharing the screen together. Something I've always found interesting is that the events of Heat take inspiration from a real-life event. In this case, Detective Chuck Adamson's pursuit of the real-life serial criminal Neil McCauley, which took place in the 1960s. According to the DVD commentary, the meeting of Hannah and McCauley takes inspiration from a real-life event, as Adamson was dropping off his laundry at a local mall and ran into McCauley. Both men recognized each other, and instead of it turning into a Michael Bay-inspired Hollywood gunfight, Adamson asked McCauley to have a cup of coffee with him, which allowed Adamson to probe McCauley and find out some things about him. The fact that this scene is based off a real-life event is interesting in and of itself. It's also the meeting and casting of these actors at this particular time which gives the scene so much reverence for me. In the film, Pacino's Lieutenant Hanna, the best of what he does, takes it upon himself to track down and catch De Niro's Neil McCauley, a career criminal and the best of what he does in the act. Having Pacino and De Niro play these characters is another reason for its perfection, because their characters are the best at what they do with a mutual respect between them. And at this point in time, Pacino and De Niro were viewed as the best at their craft, with an obvious mutual respect between them. So to have these actors playing these characters was just perfect for this point in their careers. The scene is simple. It's two men sitting at a table having a conversation, with one camera on Pacino, one on De Niro, with another filming both of them. Mann, however, never used this angle, preferring the over-the-shoulder shots on both actors. The entire scene is taken from one take 11, and Mann smartly just lets the scene play, letting two master actors do what they do best, and that is own a scene. This is the only scene in which both characters effectively let their guard down, as through the film we see them in their craft, stone-faced and professional. But in this one scene they are more open with each other than they are with the very people they have in their personal lives. The scene starts with both characters playing mind games, eyes shifting, both on guard, but the scene takes a turn when Hannah asks McCauley to stop doing what he's doing, and it's McCauley's response that begins to break the ice.
Then don't take down scores.
I do what I do best. I take scores. You do what you do best, trying to stop guys like me.
Both characters are now fully acknowledging their relationship in cop and criminal, but both are expressing in their own way the respect they have for each other. With the ice starting to thaw, Hannah opens up about his home life, and McCauley basically gives his mantra on how he lives his life and is able to stay one step ahead of everyone else.
Don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner.
Now this is a good example of Hannah's interrogation skills, and his intent to get inside the head of McCauley and find out how he works. In sitting down to drink a coffee, he knows he's not going to change his mind, change the way he works, or change the way he lives his life. But by engaging him in a conversation like this, he's been able to see how McCauley lives his life, and that he actually has someone in his life.
So then if you spot me coming around that corner, you're just gonna walk out on this woman? Not say goodbye?
That's the discipline.
All this information has come forward without him actually asking for it, but this is information Hannah can use in the future if need be. The ice is further thawed as both characters admit they can't see themselves living their lives any other way, and both admit neither would want to either, which brings about the first smile they share together.
I don't know how to do anything else.
Neither do I.
I don't much want to either.
Neither do I.
The more comfortable these men get with each other, the more their guard drops, the closer the camera moves in. Although, there is never an actual visual zoom, and you only really notice it when you go back and re-watch the scene and note where the camera starts to where it sits when the scene finishes. The conversation reaches its apex when both characters share a recurring dream the other has, which is an overlay on how each character effectively sees his life, and is something neither of them have shared with their friends and family in the film, just showing how relaxed and how much they can identify with each other now. The scene comes to its conclusion with Hannah and Macaulay both essentially laying out their final plays, as Hannah assures Macaulay he will not hesitate to put him down should the moment present itself, and Macaulay promises the same should Hannah stand between him and a getaway. In the hands of lesser actors, this small exchange could be played as each character threatening the other, but the dialogue, the delivery, the location, and the obvious respect Hannah and Macaulay have for each other just helps reassure that these are two professionals making each other a promise that they ideally would rather not follow through on. But at the same time, they're acknowledging what they do, their faith in what they do, as well as the respect they have for each other. With the intent known and having finally met face to face, both of them share a smile, and the scene concludes. The scene is wonderful in how underplayed it is. Watch their eyes, always off center until they actually address each other, always probing for a weakness until the conversation nears its climax, at which point both men are giving each other their full attention and respect. The script is tight, and De Niro and Pacino never fall into caricature. Both men are portrayed as human beings with flaws and weakness on both sides, and the scene is effective because how the film builds up this meeting. The film plays it smart and keeps both actors separate for over an hour and 20 minutes. Sometimes they appear in the same scene together, but they're never face to face, and when they finally come together, the meeting of these two movie icons is shown in the most simplest of ways, over a cup of coffee, starting off at a distance, and slowly becoming closer and more intimate. It's 6 minutes long, but I don't know of anybody who has watched this scene and has not been totally sucked in by the time the scene ends. And that's it from me, and that's it for another episode of Seen It.
Nobody cares.